Welcome, everyone. This is very exciting. This is our first hybrid event with Building Bridges, and we're just so excited to welcome you all here in person, as well as everyone on Zoom. Thanks for joining us. We have people from all over the world joining us today, as far away as Israel, and it's very, very exciting. So I just want to introduce myself. My name is Marilyn Wolovic. And on behalf of Kolot Mayim Reform Temple, our board and our Rabbi Lynn, we're delighted to welcome you to this third lecture in our series on the theme of Kolot Zemarot, Voices of Jewish Music. We're so glad you could be here. I'm the chair of the Kolot Mayim Adult Education Committee and a member of this congregation. It's a wonderful, wonderful community, so we really appreciate your support. And I'm just so grateful to have found such a welcoming, warm, nurturing community here. The talk is being offered with funding support from the Jewish Federation of Victoria and Vancouver Island, so we're grateful for that. And our theme for Building Bridges this year is the many voices of Jewish music. And in the wake of the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism following the events of October 7th, 2023, it's more important than ever that we celebrate and amplify the rich tapestry of Jewish culture, history, and heritage. So this series of lectures is hoping to do that. Before we get started, I turn things over from our featured speaker, David Benkof. I will briefly explain our Zoom format for those who are on Zoom. We're just so thrilled to have David here in person. I'm grateful that he could fit us into his busy travel schedule. So the webinar is being recorded and will be sent to everyone who registered. And you don't have to worry if you're in the audience, you won't be seen because the camera is facing front. There's 82 people online. Great. We had 145 people, or 155 people register for this event. And there's 85 on the screen, and the rest will be getting the recording. So David will speak on his topic for about 50 minutes. And then following his presentation, we'll have 15 minutes for Q&A at around noon. And because we're recording this session, we're not offering, it's a webinar, so you can't unmute if you're online, but you can ask your questions live on the screen using the Q&A tab on your Zoom screen. Please keep your questions short and ask in the form of a question rather than a statement. If you're on Zoom, closed captioning is available. So now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to David Benkof, also known as the Broadway Maven. And David is a Jerusalem-based Jewish educator and Broadway aficionado who inspires deep thinking about musical theater. He reaches thousands of Broadway fans all around the world through his Zoom classes, his Substack called MARQUEE, and his YouTube channel. So if you want to check him out afterwards, check him out on YouTube. He has spoken worldwide since 2015 in 4 languages, and he's the author of 2 books, and he holds a master's degree from Stanford in history, and he taught high school and adult education for many years. So we're just thrilled to have someone of his caliber come to visit us in Victoria, and please join me in welcoming David Benkof.
Thank you. Shalom, I'm David Benkof, the Broadway Maven. And I'm thrilled to be here in Victoria to talk to you about a subject that I love, which is Jewish Broadway. And I wanted to just express my deep gratitude to Kolot Mayim Temple for hosting me today. Let's play the first clip.
In any great adventure, if you don't want to lose, victory depends upon the people that you choose. So listen, Arthur, darling, closely to this news. We won't succeed on Broadway if we don't have any Jews. You may have the finest sets, fill the stage with penthouse pets. You may have the loveliest costumes and best shoes. You may dance and you may sing, but I am sorry, Arthur King, you'll hear no cheers, just lots and lots of boos. Boo. You may have butchmen by the score, whom the audience adore. You may even have some animals from zoos. Though you pose and crouch instead, you may have unleavened bread, but I tell you, you are dead if you don't have any Jews. They won't care if it's witty or everything looks pretty. They'll simply say it's shitty and refuse. No party will go, sir, if it's not kosher, then no show, sir. Even Goyim won't be dim enough to choose. And put on shows that make men stare with lots of girls in underwear. You may even have the finest of reviews.
You're doing great!
But the audiences won't care, sir, as long as you don't dare, sir, to open up on Broadway
If we don't have any Jews.
You may have dramatic lighting, or lots of horrid fighting. You may even have some white men sing the blues. Your nights may be nice, boys, but sadly we're all goys, and that noise that you call singing, you must lose. So despite your pretty lights and naughty girls and nasty tights, and the most impressive scenery you use, you may have dancing mano-a-mano, you may bring on a piano, but they will not give a damn-o if you don't have any Jews. Have Nigerian girls and stays.
You may even have some chick shots making stews.
You haven't got a clue. If you don't have a Jew, all of your investments you are going to lose.
There's a very small percentile who enjoys a dancing Gentile. I'm sad to be the one with this bad news.
Never mind your sword play, you just won't succeed on Broadway. You just don't succeed on Broadway if you don't have any Jews.
Papa, can you hear me? To get along on Broadway, to sing your song on Broadway, to hit the top on Broadway and not lose. I tell you, Arthur King, there is one essential theme. There simply must be Jews. There simply must be, Arthur, trust me, simply must be Jews.
Why is this song funny? It's not written by Jewish people. What's funny about that song? Why is it making all of you laugh?
Symbolism.
A symbolism.
It's a symbolism of what?
David, could you move?
Oh, sure. So a symbolism of what?
Well, you can see a little homage in there to Fiddler on the Roof, of course. Stereotypes too, of course, somewhat. Yeah, the bar dance was in there, the bottle dance was in there, and
but the idea of Broadway needing Jews, what is that?
Making it bigger. In other words, making it bigger.
Making it bigger.
As far as I'm concerned.
That's true.
It's also true.
Yeah.
So it's something you may not have thought about in that way, but then when it comes out in in song and dance, it suddenly becomes funny.
Yeah.
So people usually hear that song and they think they already know what the joke is. The joke is that Jews wrote Broadway, Jews perform Broadway, Jews produce Broadway. And that's true. It's historically true. It's statistically true. And it's been said so many times that it barely counts as an insight anymore.
Yeah.
Which is why I want to linger on the song for a moment longer, because it's actually doing something more interesting than acknowledging contributors. It's not just naming who's in the room. It's describing how the room works. And that's where I want to start. Broadway is Jewish because of the identity of its creators is by and large true and by and large boring. So today I want to go a step further and argue that Broadway isn't primarily Jewish because of the people involved, but because of the very sensibility of the art form.
Wow.
Broadway is Jewish because its plots and themes and character arcs reflect the Jewish experience in North America. See what I did? Whether the shows themselves are set in Anatevka or a little whorehouse in Texas. In other words, your show won't succeed on Broadway if its grammar has no Jews. So look at what characters do on Broadway when they sing. Songs are almost never expressions of peace. They're arguments with reality. Here's what I want. Here's why I deserve it. Here's why I will fall apart if I don't get it. Even joy on Broadway tends to arrive as relief, not serenity.
Wow.
That emotional posture, restless, striving, slightly defensive, is deeply Jewish. It grows out of histories of conditional welcome, where excellence becomes a survival strategy, and visibility is both opportunity and danger. Broadway characters don't assume that the room loves them. They hustle to make the room need them. That's why Broadway feels Jewish, even when Jews are nowhere in sight. Today, we'll be looking at 6 very Jewish themes: assimilation, reinvention, insecurity, exile, visibility, and ambivalence, and exploring how Broadway delineates and musicalizes those tensions. We're going to start with Hairspray, which explores assimilation, even if you don't notice it. So Hairspray is set in early 1960s Baltimore, where Tracy Turnblad, a plus-sized teenage girl who dreams of dancing on a local TV show, helps integrate it. It's on its face, it's a sunny civil rights musical. Big hair, big optimism, and the belief that fairness will prevail if decent people push hard enough. There's almost nothing explicitly Jewish in the Turnblad household. There's a quick Shabbat Shalom joke, tossed off for a laugh, but it's clearly a gag rather than a marker of identity. And Edna Turnblad later refers quite casually to a Christmas ham. So the show makes no real claim that these characters are Jewish, and it doesn't need to. What makes Hairspray Jewish is not identity, but method, an exploration of assimilation. Tracy doesn't seek to burn the system down. She wants in. She believes that visibility, respectability, and moral clarity will persuade institutions to change from within. That belief that assimilation is both a strategy and an ethical good is deeply Jewish in a North American context. The show is anxious about legitimacy. Being seen on television matters because television confers worth. Change must be cheerful, inclusive, and legible to power. That combination of idealism, anxiety, and faith that the system can be nudged towards justice if you appeal to its conscience is not universal. It's a Jewish sensibility operating inside a story that never needs to say the word Jewish out loud, which makes Hairspray slightly subversive, like quite a bit of post-war Jewish art. So now, Hello Dolly, whose themes relate to the continual reinvention of the Jewish community.
Put on your Sunday clothes, there's lots of world out there. Get out the grill, get your tea and dime cigars. We're gonna find that moisture in the evening air. Girls in white and on perfume night where the lights are bright as the star. Put on your Sunday clothes, we're gonna ride through town in one of those new horse-drawn open cars. We'll see the shows in Delmonico that will blow the town in our world, and we won't come home until we kiss the girl.
Sunday clothes when you feel down and down. Step out the streets and have a picture took. Just like a dream, your spirit soon will turn around. That Sunday shine is a certain sign that you feel as fine as you look.
Beneath your parasol, the world is all a smile that makes you feel brand new down to your toes. Get out your feathers, your patent leathers, your beads and buckles and gold. For there's no blue Monday in your Sunday gold. Monday in your Sunday gold.
So, Hello, Dolly is set in late 19th century Yonkers and New York and centers on Dolly Levi, a matchmaker determined to reinsert herself into life, love, and society after loss. On its surface, it's a warm, old-fashioned musical comedy, bustle, optimism, and the promise that life can start again at any age. Nothing about the show announces Jewishness. It traffics in Americana, nostalgia, and theatrical charm. What makes Hello, Dolly Jewish is its faith in reinvention as obligation rather than indulgence. Dolly doesn't wait for meaning to return. She engineers it. Social maneuvering is not frivolous. It's how life is rebuilt. The show treats joy as something you must re-enter deliberately with wit, planning, and resilience. That belief that motion, matchmaking, and strategic optimism are moral acts in the face of loss creates a sort of shalom Dolly inside one of Broadway's sunniest and exteriors. And now, a chorus line, which can be seen as a commentary on conditional acceptance.
I hope I get it. I hope I get it. How many people does he need? How many people does he need? I hope I get it. I hope I get it. How many boys? How many girls? How many boys? How many? Look at all the people. At all the people. How many people does he need? How many boys? How many girls? How many people does he? I really need this job. Please God, I need this job. I've got to get this job.
A chorus line is about a group of dancers auditioning for a Broadway show, stripped of character names, costumes, and context as they stand on a bare stage and plead for employment. There is no Jewish subject matter in the premise, and only occasional incidental references to Jewish identity among the characters. On its face, it's a musicalized show business procedural drama. Talented people competing for limited slots, judged by an impersonal authority figure. What makes a chorus line Jewish is its moral structure. Acceptance is conditional, temporary, and never guaranteed. To stay, you must confess your childhood, your shame, your injuries, your longing, and hope that honesty will be rewarded rather than punished. Worth is not assumed. It must be demonstrated repeatedly as the characters announce, essentially, what they did for love. Visibility is both salvation and threat. The chorus line itself is a metaphor for diaspora. Proximity without security, community without permanence. Even success offers no rest, only the promise of being judged again tomorrow. That worldview, where belonging is precarious, Excellence is a survival strategy, and self-exposure is the price of staying in the room is not neutral. It is a profoundly Jewish way of understanding the world, operating inside a show that never needs to declare itself Jewish to be unmistakably so. And now, Wicked, which I will argue is a show about exile.
There's no fight we cannot win. Just you and I defying gravity. With you and I defying gravity. They'll never bring us down. So if you care to find me to the western sky, has someone told me lately, everyone deserves a chance to fly. And if I'm flying solo, at least I'm flying free. To those who ground me, take a message back from me. Tell them how I am defying gravity. I'm flying high, defying gravity, and soon I'll match them in renown. And nobody in all of Oz, no wizard that there is or was, is ever gonna bring me down.
Wicked is a fantasy prequel set in the land of Oz, centered on the friendship between Elphaba, a green-skinned outsider, and Glinda, a socially gifted insider. On its surface, it's a pop spectacle about destiny, female friendship, and the nature of good and evil. There is no Jewish content in the world of Oz, and the show's aesthetic is maximalist, mythic, and deliberately universal. What makes Wicked Jewish is its moral argument about visibility and dissent. Elphaba is not rejected because she is wrong, but because she refuses to make herself palatable. The show understands how systems preserve themselves by manufacturing villains, and how popularity can function as moral anesthesia. Doing the right thing isolates you. Being loved often means being complicit. Defying gravity is not a triumphal anthem. It's an acceptance of exile. That worldview in which justice costs belonging and clarity comes with loneliness is a Jewish sensibility articulated through spectacle rather than scripture. Let's move on to Chicago, an exploration of the very Jewish theme of visibility. Chicago is set in Prohibition-era Chicago and follows Roxy Hart and Velma Kelly, two murderesses who turn crime into celebrity with the help of a cynical legal and media apparatus. On its face, it's a brassy satire, sex, corruption, jazz, and a world in which truth barely matters and charisma is everything. There is nothing Jewish in the plot, the setting, or the character's self-understanding. This is a show about jazz age, razzle-dazzle, at its most ruthless. What makes Chicago Jewish is its moral anthropology. The show assumes that innocence is irrelevant and that survival depends on controlling narrative, visibility, and sympathy. Justice is not discovered, it is performed. In Chicago, the courtroom and the press box are indistinguishable, and the audience inside the theater is implicated as part of the jury. Roxy doesn't try to be good, she tries to be legible, likable, and necessary. The anxiety underneath the satire is unmistakable. If the story turns against you, you're finished. That worldview, where judgment is omnipresent, morality is negotiated in public, and staying alive means managing how you're seen, is deeply Jewish in its sensibility, even when expressed with cynical glee. And finally, company, which is an exemplar of the very Jewish theme and very Sondheimian theme of ambivalence.
Where you going?
Barcelona,
Oh,
don't get up.
do you have to?
Yes, I have to.
Oh,
Don't get up. Now you're angry.
no, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. Put your things down.
See, you're angry.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. Put your wings down and
I'm
stay.
leaving
Why?
to go to. I
Stay.
have to
Fly, I know, to Barcelona.
Company is set in the 1970s and follows Bobby, a New Yorker, surrounded by married friends while remaining profoundly ambivalent about commitment. On its face, it's a modern relationship musical, urbane, ironic, and emotionally cool, concerned with adulthood, intimacy, and choice. There is no Jewish subject matter in the premise, and the tone is deliberately unsentimental. What makes Company Jewish is its treatment of ambivalence as ethical seriousness rather than failure. The show is allergic to certainty. Marriage is neither idealized nor rejected. It is interrogated relentlessly. Desire is tangled with fear, obligation with resentment, and solitude with longing. Barcelona is a commentary on being alone, a word you can literally hear in the song's title, Barcelona, and the willingness to accept pain as the price of connection. That anxious, self-questioning approach to intimacy, where commitment is terrifying precisely because it matters, reflects a Jewish sensibility grounded in moral seriousness rather than ease. Okay, we're going to have some fun in a minute, but first I want to tell you a little bit about what I do. So go ahead and play, and I'll play.
Shalom, I'm David Benkof, the Broadway Maven. The Broadway Maven offers 5 to 15 classes every month. It's your home for Broadway appreciation. Some members-only classes in January: Jewish Broadway, Ashman and Menken, Pal Joey, and a 50th anniversary roundtable in honor of Pacific Overtures by Stephen Sondheim and John Weidman. The 90-minute Pacific Overtures panel on January 27th includes book writer John Weidman, orchestrator Jonathan Tunick, and performers Francis Ju and B.D. Wong. Not to be missed, members only. Looking ahead to February and March, we've got Kiss Me Kate, State Fair, Allegro, a 5-part series on Andrew Lloyd Webber, The Pajama Game and Damn Yankees, Sweeney Todd, and a visit by Lynn Ahrens, the lyricist of Ragtime. Check out the calendar and sign up as a member at thebroadwaymaven.com.
Now we're going to have some fun. I want to know what you think is Jewish about some major Broadway shows. I've just given you 6. And I want to use the lens of theme and sensibility that we've been exploring. So we're not looking for, oh, here's the writer who's Jewish, or here's a character who is Jewish. We're looking for sensibility and theme. So I'm going to name a few shows, and I'll call on people to answer the question. So the first show is The Lion King. What is Jewish in the sensibility of the light? Raise your hand if you will.
Family.
Sure, tell me about that.
Can I just suggest you come over to the microphone? You won't be on the screen, but your voice will be
Sure.
on Zoom.
Sure.
No,
Okay.
You can
Any-
summarize maybe.
Sure, she mentioned family. Does anybody else want to give a shot at what might be Jewish about the Lion King? Yeah,
Phrase, remember who you are.
and I'll repeat what she says. The phrase, remember who you are.
That's like very like, remember your Jewish lineage.
Your lineage, right. So Simba runs away and gets the message from Mufasa and Rafiki, remember who you are and go back and save your people. Save your people is a very Jewish theme, right? Good, good. Yes?
What about the Shadowlands as a, I don't know, the area that you're not supposed to go, it's dangerous.
Okay.
Where you are.
Okay, so Shadowlands is part of the landscape of the show, and it's Novozo, is what you're saying. Good. One more? Anybody else? Okay, the next show is The Phantom of the Opera. What's Jewish about Phantom? Yeah.
The juxtaposition, I would say, of life here and life here.
Okay, so there's the surface life, which is where Christine lives, and then underneath you've got the Phantom and his subterranean world, and the maybe, right? Good. Other thoughts about Phantom and what might be Jewish?
You have to hide who you are.
Oh, tell me more about that. You have to hide who you are.
I'm not so well known of any of these
Uh-huh.
shows.
Uh-huh.
I know the mask.
The mask.
Yeah, he had to
Uh-huh.
hide who he was.
Right, and Jews wear masks, and that's just on Purim, right? Good. We'll do one more, and that's Rent. What's Jewish about Rent? Some people don't know this show. Yes.
You really have to hustle and rent to make a living.
Okay, and that is the North American Jewish story.
That's the immigrant experience.
The immigrant experience. You have to hustle to make a living and to get things done. Yes.
I also think there's a big connection on family, like your local family. You find your neighbor and they become your family.
Right.
They're all from other places and they become each other's family.
Good. So you have to create family, make connections, even if you're coming from different places, from very different places. I know that certainly in Canadian Jewish history, you have all kinds of threads of people coming from different places and making a community. Yes.
Instability.
Tell me about that.
Well, they were not assured that they're going to have a place to live.
Good. And so that's very Jewish, a sense of precariousness and instability. Excellent. So I don't know how many people saw the commercial that I put together for today's talk, but I promised a little bit of Canadian content. And anybody see Come From Away? Yeah, a lot of you saw Come From Away. Well, I saw it a year and a half ago in Gander. I got to go up to the northern edge of this country and see this show. For those of you who don't know, it is about a pretty small Canadian town that rescued thousands of people after 9/11 and welcomed them into their home and their community. I was crying. And their community. I got to go and meet some of the people who had done it. And that, I think, is a very Jewish theme. As a matter of fact, there was a show that was really close in theme to Come From Away that won the Tony for Best Musical, called The Band's Visit. Anybody see The Band's Visit? It's about it. Yeah.
Israeli or?
Oh, exactly. It's about an Egyptian band that comes to a small Israeli town. They want to go to Petach Tikva, but they don't know how to pronounce the difference between a P and a B, and so they take a bus to Beta Tikva, which is a small development town in Israel, and they're stuck there overnight. And Jewish and Egyptian, there's a lot of tension there, but somebody has to host these people, and you get to see overnight the connections that are made between these two communities. And that has a lot to do with the themes of Come From. So I wanted to share that at the start of the talk. And I was sitting next to Newfoundlanders who had been there when it took place. And they had somebody come up to the stage and talk about a reverend and talk about how in his church, and this is included in the show, in his church, one of the ways that they were able to communicate with, I think he said they were Moldovans who came to the town, and nobody spoke Moldovan, right? Is they were able to say Luke chapter 3, verse 7, and they were able to point to the verses in the Bible and use that as a mode of communication. It's in the show, and I'd seen it in the show, but I got to see the reverend who had made this communication possible. It was really an amazing experience, and they're doing it every summer. So if any of you, whether you have a passport or not, you can go. If you want to go up to Gander, if you want to go up to Gander and see this, you can do it any summer. I don't think they do it in the winter, but in the summer they do it. So how are we doing on time? We have a little time. And so I want to see to what extent the people in the room have accepted my thesis. And my question is whether you can name a show that feels really un-Jewish to you. And then we'll see if other people in the room agree. Anybody think of a show that really seems not Jewish? Hamilton, okay. Thank you. What's Jewish about Hamilton? Yes.
Hamilton is an orphan who travels from the Caribbean to New York, and it's all about being an outsider, trying to prove that he's as good as everybody else, and be accepted by all of the leaders.
Right, so Hamilton is an outsider, he's an immigrant, and he needs to prove himself. He needs to continuously prove himself in order to be accepted. That's the North American Jewish experience. Standing on one foot. Good, thank you. Another show that doesn't seem very Jewish. And then we'll see. Sorry? The Music Man. Okay, good one. Good one. River City. Anybody want to give that a shot? What's Jewish about the music?
The ultimate hustler.
Yes! Exactly. He's the ultimate hustler. Good.
Something from nothing.
Yeah.
The kids couldn't play at all.
The kids couldn't play, and if you dream it, you can build it.
Yeah.
Right? Is that Jewish?
Oh, good.
I think that's
Me too.
I'm never going to be able to see another show again.
There you go. Well, then I did something right then. So there you have it. Success on Broadway depends not on having any Jews, but on having Jewishness. I want to thank Kolot Mayim for including me in your musical series, and I'm happy to take some questions.
We do have someone that's asking about the sound of music.
Oh, okay, about whether it's, what's Jewish about the sound of music. Okay, let's do that one. By the way, I've seen it in Hebrew twice in Jerusalem, and I've never seen more Nazis and nuns in the same place. Since I moved to Israel, that was the largest number of Nazis and nuns I've ever seen. What is Jewish about the sound of music? Maybe we found one that isn't very Jewish. Escaping. Okay.
Persecution. Maybe.
Persecution. Okay. Having to be on the run. Having to look over your shoulder. Good. Fear. Good. So I think you guys are accepting, and we're having some practice at not saying, well, Richard Rodgers was Jewish, and therefore Sound of Music has, right? That is true and boring. And what we've been able to do here today, and I see that you're able to do it pretty well, is think about you won't succeed on Broadway if you don't have any Jewishness as opposed to just Jews. So, yeah.
What was the show that you opened your program with?
Oh, sure. That's called Spamalot. And it is a Monty Python version of Camelot. Yeah, and they, in the middle of the show, they do this number about you won't succeed on Broadway if you don't have it you choose. And interestingly, they have another version of that song that they do when it is in a community, like when they've done it on the West End or in certain high schools where there aren't a lot of Jewish people, and they say you won't succeed on Broadway if you don't have any stars. And it sucks all the air of what's fun about the show. Yeah. But the idea being that some people won't get it or will even buy into it and find it anti-Semitic in the way that we wouldn't want them to. Oh, so they have a second version. Yeah. I don't want anybody to do that version because I think this one is hilarious. Sure, Michael.
I'm up in Seattle. The Fifth Avenue Theater is doing a production of Spamalot in February. So if you're really curious and want to come down to Seattle, get tickets.
So the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle is doing Spamalot. It's a great show. It's hilarious in February. That's next month. So that would be a really good opportunity. And it's hard to get from Vancouver to from Victoria to Seattle. It's not so easy, but worth the trip back and forth for sure. Yes.
So are these themes so ingrained in the Broadway musical that they keep getting rewritten, if you know what I mean? When you start to write a musical, these are the themes that you go to, whether you know they're Jewish or not.
Right. So the question is whether these are themes that you sort of naturally go to when you write a Broadway show. And I think it is, because Broadway has its own history and its own tradition, and you could have, 4 African Americans sit down and decide to write a show, and it could be lots of themes related to the Black experience in North America. But it's also going to relate to the tradition that comes from Lerner and Lowe and Rodgers and Hammerstein and Stephen Sondheim, etc. And that is very powerful in the musical writing tradition. So I think that these things are going to stick around. And, I teach Broadway, and my typical student, because I've surveyed, is a 71-year-old Jewish lady. That's my typical student. But when I have students who are under 40, they don't tend to be Jewish, and they're not all gay men either. It's surprising. You have a bunch of people from different backgrounds, but these themes, I think, stick around. Yeah.
I just want to ask further: how much of it is the music? Because there's lots of plays on Broadway that have no music at all. So is there something about music or the music itself?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. There is some Yiddishy influence on, like, the music in Fiddler, for example, has some music that comes right out of the Eastern European tradition, and these things tend to lend themselves to one another. But I'm not the kind of guy who goes and looks for, this chord is Jewish. First of all, I'm not really qualified to do that, but even so, that's not really what interests me. I'm more interested in themes and character arcs and the moral of the story is than what that chord is. Yes?
Can we look at Book of Mormon?
Oh, okay, good. What is Jewish, if so?
Proselytizing, which we don't do as Jews.
Okay.
I'm curious about that.
Okay, about the Book of Mormon. But, I'm going to answer it a little bit. They are missionaries, and they go to Africa to try to convert people to Mormonism. But they also invent their own religion while they're there, right? At the end, Elder Cunningham has created a religion that is completely bizarre, but it meets the needs of the Ugandans who live there in terms of finding morality and meaning in the world that's around them that does not necessarily line up with the Book of Mormon. As a matter of fact, they call it the Book of Arnold, I think. The Book of Arnold, that's right. So, and reinvention of religion to meet the cultural times, kind of an American, North American Jewish experience. So I would say yes.
Even European.
Even European, sure, certainly. Yes.
Wow.
Did Broadway evolve from vaudeville?
Did Broadway evolve through Broadway? Yeah, it was a step in the history, for sure. Now, do we want to see if there's somebody? There are still 76 people. Give people a chance.
Does your argument parallel the claim that the Jews invented Hollywood?
Oh, I should think about that. I'm not the Hollywood Maven. I think.
Oh, the Broadway.
Yeah, probably. Usually when people talk about the Jews inventing Hollywood, they're talking about producers more than themes. But probably, I have to work on it. That's an interesting question. Yeah.
That's it for on Zoom. Any more questions from in the room?
Yes.
If you had a conversation with a Jungian or someone interested in the mythic journey or the hero with many faces, would you be finding the same themes, the archetypes that are underneath Broadway plays? Would it come together? Would it clash with each other?
Interesting. So I'm not an expert at Jung, but I know a lot about Freud, and I think Sondheim is really Freudian.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, Into the Woods is the show that I think is the most Freudian. But Sondheim did including Sondheim. A lot of people say, no, it's not true.
Of course.
He said, no. Or it's a Jungian show. But I think there's a lot of Freud hiding underneath a lot of work. So it's an interesting question. This has been so much fun. I really have enjoyed chatting with you guys about Jewish Broadway. And thank you so much for and your series.
This has been so stimulating and interesting, eh? I've been hanging on every single word, so thank you so much. Very exciting. Wow. I just recently went to the Wicked movies, watched them back to back, and the whole time I was watching it, I was weeping because I felt that it was embodying our experience as Jews.
Wow.
So to hear you say that just really, really is very moving and affirming, and it's also inspiring, I think, because all these stories are very inspirational.
Yeah.
And we draw so much strength from witnessing people overcoming the impossible, making it possible. So happy you all were here today. Before we wrap up, I want to also invite you to our next lecture in our series. Dr. Naomi Cohn-Zentner, who is an ethnomusicologist from Israel also, will be speaking on the topic of music and war, an optimistic point of view, on Sunday, February the 8th at 11 a.m. on Zoom. So it won't be in person, sorry, but we will be on Zoom again. And she's a leading voice in the study of contemporary Israeli music. And she has noted that Israeli songs about the war and the army have always been about hope and peace. Yeah. And especially after October 7th. So her talk will look at how Israeli musicians have responded to historic recent events and offer a timely exploration of music's role in processing grief, inspiring resilience, and connecting community in times of crisis.
Wow.
Which we're in right now, so we're very grateful for that opportunity. So it should be a very fascinating and uplifting presentation. I hope you'll join us. And Sam will put the registration link into the chat, and we'll also include it in the follow-up email that we send to everyone. And I want to thank our wonderful team of Building Bridges volunteers, Ann Petrie over there, and Sam Margolis over there, and for all their help with this. And of course, our board of directors and Rabbi Lynn for her support for this series of talks. And we're also grateful once again to the Jewish Federation of Victoria and Vancouver Island for their generous funding, which partially funds this series, which brings me to thank those of you who I understand already made donations for attending this series. And if you would like, it's totally optional, but an $18 donation would be very much appreciated to help us support these talks. Thanks to each of you for being here, and I want to offer our heartfelt appreciation for David's incredible presentation. It's beyond anything I could have imagined, so I'm really, really inspired. And David, would you like to offer a few closing words?
Well, I just, sometimes people like to talk to me at the end of a talk, and I'm happy to do that with any of you, but I also, it's my custom to go to the back of the room and thank people for coming. So I'll be doing that now, and thank you for welcoming me. So.